This is the second in a series of videos for the History 103 course at the University of Maine. What we are looking at now is the default map on Social Explorer. First, and perhaps most importantly, you will want to know how to change the data. In the upper left corner is the Change Data button. From here, you are able to scroll to the year of your choice. The earliest data is from 1790, when the first U.S. population census was completed. When you have chosen a year, you need to pick which category of information you would like to see. You will notice that the availability of data categories varies from year to year. Categories that are faded out are unavailable for the year, so when you start to compare maps over time, make sure that your desired category is available for all of the years that you want to look at. Right now, I want to look at the slave population in 1790, so I will select 1790, scroll down to slavery, and select slave population. What you are looking at now is a map of the slave population using data from the census of 1790. This map is visualizing the data by shaded area. In this case, the slave population is shown as a percentage of the total population. A darker shade means that the slave population makes up a greater percentage of the total population. As you can see, Virginia is much darker than Pennsylvania, meaning that slaves make up more of the population in Virginia. Hovering over the state will show how the data breaks down. Virginia had a slave population of 292,627, which made up 39% of the total population. Pennsylvania had a slave population of 3,707, which made up less than 1% of the population. 39% is much greater than 1, and therefore, Virginia is much darker. Now we are looking at shaded area, but you have the option to change the visualization type for your map. There are two other options. The first is bubbles, which displays the data with a single circle per unit, which in this case is a state. The size of the bubble is proportional to the population. A larger bubble demonstrates a larger slave population. As you can see, the bubble is much larger in Virginia than in Pennsylvania. You should note that this visualization type is not dealing with the percentage of the slave population out of the total. The bubble is related to the size of the slave population alone. The last choice is dot density. This differs from bubbles because instead of a single bubble that varies in size depending on population, each dot in dot density represents the same value. You can see the value here. There can be several dots per unit depending on the size of the population. This is why Virginia has several dots and Pennsylvania none. Just know that dots are randomly scattered across the unit. The dot is not related to a location within the unit. Now I am going to go back to shaded area, as I feel it best represents the data. These options allow you to decide how you feel the data should be represented. So far, we've been primarily looking at the state level. However, we can make that unit even smaller. Next to the visualization type dropdown is Show Data By. As you can see, for this data category, there are two options, state and county. Other data categories will even go down to the census tract level. The options are faded because we have the data display set to automatic, which is the default. This means that as we zoom in on the map, our data display changes from state to county. We know that the slave population made up less than 1% of the total Pennsylvania population, but we can see that there are counties in which it made up more, such as Franklin County, where the slave population made up 2% of the total. Although zooming in has allowed us to see the data at the county level, we can no longer easily compare it to Virginia because there isn't enough room on the map. To fix this, go back to Show Data By and turn off Automatic, then select County. You can now see the county level data while also maintaining a broader view of the nation. Now looking at the county level data from a distance, you can see a variety of shades that demonstrate where the slave population is concentrated. Depending on how you want to analyze the data, it might benefit you to adjust the cut points. The cut points determine how the data is broken up and affect how different shades represent different population percentages. The bar at the top illustrates these distinctions. If you decide you want to change these, select the caret to the right of the bar. At the bottom of the drop-down is a Cut Points button. You can edit the cut points however you like. There are even some options provided for you. But perhaps I want to see the data in 10% breaks, so I will adjust the number of classes to 10, and I will manually edit the breaks. You should be careful to pay attention to the cut points when you're comparing maps with different data categories. If the cut points are different between maps, you might make mistakes in your analysis. Under the same drop-down menu where we adjusted cut points, there are two other options: Colors and Flip Colors. Colors, it seems obvious, lets you change the colors of your map. They are a preference, but can be useful when looking at multiple maps. It makes it a little easier to distinguish between them. The other option is for you to flip the colors. This just changes which end of your data categories are dark or light. You might adjust these depending on which end of the data you would like to emphasize. Throughout this process, I have compared Pennsylvania and Virginia slave populations. If you want to look at just a couple of units on the map, there is a way to adjust your map to show only what you want. In the upper right corner is the Options menu, a square with 3 lines in it. There are several options on this drop-down menu, but I will only mention a few. The first is Mask Map Data. This is where I can select what units appear on my map. First, I will change the geography from county to state because I do not want to manually select each county. With the cursor, I will then select Pennsylvania and Virginia. Clicking Done will return us to the map. And as you can see, only the states I selected are showing the data. On the same Options menu, there is also a Map Layers option. With this, I can adjust several things, including boundary lines, as well as labels. Under that same menu is the option to annotate the map. Here, you can add shapes or labels. Perhaps you want a shape around or a marker near an area of interest. When you are ready to finish your project or just take a break, there are a few options for saving and even sharing your work. First, you can just save your work. You will need to save your work if you want to pick up on it again in the My Projects page. You should absolutely take advantage of this throughout the process and not just at the end. Secondly, you can save as, which will create a new map that will appear in your projects page. You can return to the projects page by clicking this symbol in the upper left corner, which will first return you to the home page, and from there you can select your projects page. If you are doing group work or you just need to send your work to someone else, you can share it. You can send it as a link or on these platforms or as an email. Lastly, you can export your map as an image. This is what the map looks like downloaded. It shows a title and the source, as well as a legend illustrating the cut points in the data and the scale. This is where we will stop for now. The next video will address working with two maps and how you can make comparisons between them.